Hey y'all, it's Barbara from Divine Creative Love, and I'm so excited to share with you my first card making tutorial. This is how to make your own Mother's Day card in 5 simple steps. So you can see we're starting off with some paper, ribbon, and some little embellishments, and this is how it's going to look when we're finished. So very cute, just Happy Mother's Day on the front, and then this sweet, you are simply the best on the inside. So I'm going to speed up the video a little bit here. This whole process took me about 30 minutes to make it. So your first step is to start with a blank card base. And then second step is to choose a background for your card. So decorative paper is one of the easiest ways to make a cute background for your card. And this is the pink paisley paper pad that I'm working with. It's actually a birthday themed paper pad, but it has a lot of pretty flowery papers like this one. So that's the one that I chose for the background. And then I'd already applied scrapbook.com adhesive to the back. Their adhesives come in different sizes. This is from a 2-inch roll, and then I have like a little 1/8-inch roll that I use to fill in the little edges there that didn't quite get covered. And the number one tip about this particular adhesive is that it's very, very sticky. So it will stick to your scissors when you cut it. I haven't found any workaround for that. Even my non-stick titanium scissors, it still sticks. So just have to use glue on every now and then to remove the sticky. So once you get your adhesive on, it's a little tricky to place the background on the card. I find that most of the time I end up with a little overhang, but it's easy enough just to trim that little extra off, just wherever there's a little extra. I mean, you could always leave it if it's just barely noticeable, but I like to trim it off. And like I said before, I'm using non-stick scissors here, which helps the adhesive to not stick so much to the scissors. It's easier to pull it off. But maybe once a month or so, I like to use glue gun to get some of the sticky stuff that still does get on the scissors. I don't know if there are really any truly non-stick scissors out there. Alright, so moving on to step 3, which is to add an embellishment. So I've just got this little piece of yellow ribbon that I've added some little 1/8-inch strips of the adhesive to. And then we're just going to stick it right in the middle. And you'll notice I cut it a little bit longer than the card. I figure it's always better to cut it a little bit longer rather than having it too short, because you can always cut some off of it, but you can't add any if you end up being too short. And again, you can see how some of the adhesive is sticking to my scissors and making it kind of hard to cut. The ribbon is not coming off very cleanly, and the fuzz is wanting to stick to the scissors. So it took a few cuts. So my advice would be to not have the adhesive quite so close to the edge there. That was part of my problem. The adhesive was kind of getting in the way of the ribbon, and the ribbon wasn't cutting as cleanly as it would without the adhesive on it. But it still works out just fine, just a little more effort. Alright, so your step 4 is to add a little bit of ink or some paint to kind of jazz up your card. So I'm just taking this pre-cut heart and then using some distress ink to add a little bit of color around the edge of the heart. So with distress ink, you'll want to blend it off of another piece of paper, like this scrap paper that I'm using. With the distress ink, using a little blender tool like this, you can easily end up with a little circular shape. You can see those circles around on the scrap piece of paper, because the distress ink, it goes down and it doesn't want to blend very well on the paper. So you always kind of start it off on another piece of paper and then kind of blend it onto the edge of your cardstock that you're using. So I'm just blending it all the way around the edge of that heart. And you can just flip it around make it easier to access the other side. I'm not putting any color in the middle, just around the edge, and then the Happy Mother's Day stamp is going to go in the middle of the heart. So it needs a little bit more color on that one side. And again, always remembering to blend from that background, from that scrap piece of paper, and not like directly onto the heart, so as not to get the little circular shape, get like a more of a blended look. So I thought that's good enough. That's the look that I was going for, just a little color around the edge. And then I'm just using a heat tool to dry it to make sure that I don't smudge the ink. So you can see how cute that's going to look in the center of the card. And then the last step is to stamp your sentiments. So I love using stamps for cards because the sentiments are already on the stamps. There's so many cute stamp sets with different words, phrases, and sweet little sayings, you know. So if you're bad about thinking of what to say on your cards, which is a problem that I have, I'm like, what do I say? What do I put on the card? Having a great stamp set makes it easy to put a sweet little sentiment. You can see how cute that pink Happy Mother's Day looks. And then for cleaning stamps, I just take the easiest route, which is I keep this little bottle of distilled water and just get a bit damp paper towel and just wipe the ink off of the stamp. And it never fails, I always get ink around the edge of the stamp block as well. But that's I use pigment ink a lot because it's easy to wipe it off. It doesn't stain as much as some of the other types of inks, like the dye inks. So now again, I'm giving it a little shot with the heat tool just to make sure that it's good and dry. And then just testing just to be sure. Always be careful with the inks because they can look dry, but then you might discover, oh, they're not quite there. You don't want to smudge the ink. So this heart is a little tricky because the only adhesive I have is just, you know, the 2-inch roll there. So I took a big piece and I'm just cutting a little bit off of it to make it the shape of the heart. So depending on what kind of adhesive you're using, you might have to get a little creative to make it fit your shape of whatever shape you decide to use on your card. And then you can always use the little scrap pieces to fill in kind of around the edges. And then I've got the 1/8 inch roll of adhesive that I can fill in around the little parts that didn't get covered by that 2-inch strip. So that 1/8 inch adhesive roll is very handy for that. So there's always those little edges that need to get covered to make sure that the paper is not going to come off of the card. I try to get it as close to the edge as I can without going over the edge. So you can see I've got the left and right sides of the heart covered, the bottom is covered, and there's a couple little pieces at the top that need to have a little piece of adhesive added to it just to make sure that that heart is nice and secure on the card. The last thing you want when you give somebody a handmade card is for things to be falling off of it. So then it's easy just to peel off the adhesive backing And don't worry if the adhesive is sticking to your fingers. It's pretty sticky adhesive, which is good because that makes it secure it to the card really good. Alright, then just position it right in the center of that card. You want to kind of press it down to make sure it's all good and adhered to the card. So that's our front of the card, and then we've got this sentiment from this cute little Technique Tuesday stamp set. It says, "You are simply the best," and I thought that was a super sweet Mother's Day sentiment because, you know, moms are simply the best. And then my stamp block wasn't quite big enough for that stamp, so I just turned it kind of sideways so it's diagonally. And then using that same ink color, and then just carefully place it and give it a good press. And then that's sweet. And then again, I just clean it off with a damp paper towel. And there you have it. There's the finished card. So that's really pretty easy, right? Just a little adhesive and some papers and some cute stamp sets, and you got yourself a super sweet handmade Mother's Day card. So you can see just with that one idea how many different cards you come up with. Different papers, you could have different shapes, different embellishments, and you could end up with a lot of different ideas. You could also switch up the sentiments and have Happy Mother's Day on the inside and You Are Simply Best on the outside. So it's a lot of creative options for you there. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my future videos. Bye!